Hello and good morning to all my lovely students out there. I welcome you all for today's English class. I hope all of you are fit and fine students, right? And in our today's class, we'll take up a very interesting topic. And what is that topic? The topic is about regarding puppets. So how many of you like to hear stories? All of us, we like to hear stories, right? There are various mediums of listening to stories. Sometimes we just go and then we lie on the bed and ask our mummy or grandmother to narrate a story to us, right? Bedtime stories. Sometimes we try to see stories on television, right? Different cartoon characters shows us different stories. At times what happens, we even listen to the stories of our friends, and even on theaters we see stories. So there are various mediums of listening to stories. Now in today's class we'll come to know about puppets. Puppet is one of the most traditional way of narrating stories. Students, do you know that puppets were actually invented in India, and the tradition of using puppets started from India. Really, we Indians are great, right? So today's class, let us start. It's a very interesting class where we will be learning about the different kinds of puppet traditions in India. So let's get started, students. So we are going to take up lesson number 7 from your English textbook, and the name of the lesson is Puppet Traditions of India. Okay, students, and what is the main objective of learning this lesson? The main objective of learning this lesson is to help us know about our rich Indian culture and tradition, right? India is a land of diversity, right? And we are there unitedly standing, unity in diversity, and there are various culture traditions which we have, and our culture is very rich. And in today's class we'll get to know how this puppet tradition and culture were actually growing in India through ancient time. So let's get started, students. You have your textbook with you. You can see it on the screen as well. I'll explain to you the lesson at the same time. I'll be reading as well. So all of you, please take out page number 46 of your English textbook. There on the screen you can see it. Let us now read about the rich puppet traditions of India. We all love stories, don't we? Just as there are many stories, there are various ways of telling them. You can read a story in a storybook, or you can watch one on television. So as I've already told you, students, we all love to hear stories, right? And then there are many different kinds of stories which we have heard from our childhood, right? There are fairy tales, we have read stories, real life stories as well. So there are different kind of stories, and there are different mediums of telling those stories as well. We can read a story in a storybook, right? Or we can even watch a story on television, right? We hear stories from our friends and watch a story performed in the theater. So we can also hear stories from our friends, from our parents or grandparents, and also watch what story performed on a theater. Okay. Some of these ways of storytelling are very old. So some of these ways of storytelling, that is bedtime storytelling, right? It's an old tradition. And then they have become what we all call traditions. So they have become traditions. What are traditions? It's the way of behaving for a long period of time. When people tend to behave in a certain way for a long period of time, it is called as what? It's called as tradition. The same thing is being repeated, right? For a long period of time. In which category of storytelling do you think puppetry falls? So there's a question being asked. In which category of storytelling do you think puppetry falls? And how old do you think is this tradition? So they are asking us, It will be interesting to know it, right, students? So let's read and find out how old this tradition is and what are the different kinds of puppetry we will be getting to know. Do you know what a puppet is? So it's starting to tell us, the book tells us that the lesson tells us about what a puppet actually is. Very simple. A puppet is a doll that is brought to life by a storyteller to narrate a story. So see class, what is a puppet? A puppet is nothing. It is a lifeless doll. But then what happens? It is a doll that is brought to life. It is a lifeless doll, but it is brought to life by a storyteller, by a person who tells the story, okay? By a storyteller to narrate a story. Do you know, students, narrating a story is also an art. If the storyteller is very interesting, he or she knows how to narrate the story becomes very, very interesting to us. And we can sit there for 1 hour, 2 hours and listen to the stories. But if the narrator is not very good, what happens? Even a 2-minute story would be very, very boring. So what a puppet is? It is a doll that is brought to life by a storyteller to narrate a story. The person who controls the doll is called the puppeteer or sutradhar. Okay, the person who controls the doll. Now there are different kinds of puppets. There are hand puppets, glove puppets, okay, there are string puppets, rod puppets. So what happens? It is what the doll can be made out. The person who controls the doll is called the puppeteer or sutradhar. The person may be what? The person may be holding the string or the rod or anything. He who controls the puppet is called as the puppeteer or the sutradhar. The doll can be made out of any material such as wood, cloth, clay and so on. So the doll, that is the puppet doll, can be made up of any material such as what? Such as wood. From wood also you can make puppets, and also cloth like socks and all, which you have seen, right? It can be used to make puppets. And even clay can be molded, shaped and molded, and then make wonderful puppets out of it. Okay, the puppeteer moves the doll using strings, rods and his hands. So what happens? Sometimes the puppeteer moves his hands using the string. If it is a string puppet, the puppeteer will pull the string of the puppet and then the puppet tends to move, right? Just like live human beings. And then sometimes rod puppets, the puppeteer will move the rod intact to the puppet and then the puppet comes to life. Similarly, there are hand puppets as well. Okay, when the hand of the puppeteer moves, the puppet moves as well, making the puppets alive. Okay, students, it is believed that puppetry began in India. So we really have a rich tradition culture, right? It is believed that puppetry first started in India. From the ancient times, puppets have been used to tell stories across the different regions of India. So in ancient times, what used to have? These days we have different modes of rest and relaxation, right? We can watch TV, we can do many things, play online games and do lot of things. But in ancient time there was no such different modes of rest and relaxation. So what they used to do? They used to do plays, they used to do this puppet shows, and then it has been stated that from the ancient times puppets have been used to tell stories across the different regions of India. So puppets were used to tell stories, narrate different kind of stories. Okay, stories even from the Mahabharata, stories, real life stories, and also different sort of stories which would give moral values even to the people. So we will see the two different kinds of puppets in our class today. The first one, let us read more about them and discover the different kinds of puppets. So let's see what are the different kinds of puppets. Let us begin with the string puppets. So what are string puppets? You can see it on the screen. These puppets have strings attached to various parts of their bodies. So students, you can see on the screen that these puppets has what? They have strings. They have strings which are attached to the various parts of their body like hands and legs, even the neck, right? The puppeteer pulls a string and the puppet moves a part of its body. So what does the puppeteer do? The puppeteer moves a string. If he moves the string of a right hand, then the puppet's right hand would move, right? If he moves the string of the left hand of the puppet would move, okay? These puppets are also called marionettes. So these puppets are also called as marionettes, okay? The next one is shadow puppets. So what are shadow puppets? It's totally different than the string puppets. You can see it on the screen, students. Shadow puppets, on the other hand, are flat and something like paper cutouts. So what are shadow puppets? They are very flat, not like a doll kind of thing which we have seen in the string puppets, okay? They are usually made of leather. So shadow puppets are usually made of what? They are made of cut out leathers, okay? The puppets are pressed against a white cloth with light falling on it. So in front of the audience there would be a white sheet of cloth, and at the back would be the puppeteer along with the what? Along with the puppet, which is made up of leather, which are paper cutouts, which are very flat, okay? You can see it on the screen as well, students. This results in the puppet show falling on the cloth. The audience then watches and listens to the story through these shadows. So what happens when light is being fall on that? The shadow is being reflected from the white sheet of cloth, and the audience which are being seated in front of the cloth can actually see the what? See the shadow and the puppets. The puppeteer would then speak and narrate the story and move the puppets, that is the flat paper cutouts or leather cutouts, and then narrate the stories to the audience. Okay. In today's class, students, it was very interesting. We have learned about what puppets actually are and who are the people who tend to make puppets and use it, and also we have learned about the rich culture and tradition of India, how it started the puppetry shows, and we have also covered up the two different kinds of puppets, that is what? It is string puppets and shadow puppets. So as a homework, I would encourage you all to also try making a puppet, okay? So it's not very difficult, just try to do that. You can make either a string puppet or maybe shadow puppet, and then you can also try the other one, but since I have covered up these two type of puppets, you can try it and use it as a decoration at home, or even you can try it and narrate a wonderful story to your parents when you have completed the task. So students, with that we come to the end of today's class. Your homework will actually be uploaded in your Google Classroom, that is the word meanings of these lessons. Please write down the word meanings and also make one sentence each of the particular word meanings, okay students? So take care. I shall see you all in my next class where we will be completing the particular lesson. So keep smiling, keep learning. Bye bye.